How are you?
Fine, thank you. And you?
You know, I don't know why we're such good friends, because you can be such a pain in my ass, but I still love you.
Most of the time I like you, Sean.
No, we actually get along. You know what the funniest thing about you to me is how people don't get you. I mean, you're actually a really gregarious, fun, funny person, and people are so humorless. They literally take everything you say as, I don't even know how to explain it. They just take it all the wrong way and not the spirit by which a lot of what you say is given. Do you know what I mean?
I think they get it just fine.
Yeah.
They just want to change it. This is why we refer to reporters, well, I refer to them as the joke bomb squad. They can de-wire any joke in 30 seconds. No matter what you say, they will figure out how to edit it and change obviously something that was funny into an earnest, angry, crusading statement. They wouldn't do that if they didn't get it.
You're looking forward to the debate on Wednesday.
It's like Christmas coming.
And you're still loving Donald Trump more than ever.
Yes, along with 32% of voters.
Why do you like him so much? I mean, there's a lot I like about him. I like his...
The same reason he's soaring up in the polls, and why are people acting like this is some mystery? I keep reading, even people on our side, but mostly the ones demeaning him and attacking him. And I tweeted out this weekend, the New York Times had some line about how the personal insults that have driven him to the top of the polls. No. It's not the insults. It's not the personality.
You're
it's
so
not
dumb.
that he's out. Look, if it were that if it were that he were politically incorrect, Chris Christie would be at the top of the polls. If it were because he's outside of Washington, it would be Scott Walker, Bobby Jindal. If it were because he's not a politician, it would be Carly Fiorina and Ben Carson. It's immigration, and no one will admit it is immigration. That is what is driving him to the top of the polls. That is what distinguishes him from every other candidate. Poor Scott Walker tried to be against anchor babies following Trump, and then Stanley Hubbard, a billionaire Republican donor, stepped in and said, "No, Scott, we're for anchor babies." And suddenly Scott Walker wasn't against anchor babies anymore. Not only is Trump speaking on behalf of the American people and against the elites on immigration, he is exposing every single other Republican, even the ones I was hoping to like, as being beholden to their donors.
No, it's all true. What do you think of this new refugee crisis that's going on? I mean, now we have a president. Just think, in the course of last week, it was the 14th anniversary since 9/11 on Friday. And the day before, the Congress voted to give the Iranians assure that the Iranians will have nuclear weapons and $150 billion of our dollars to build them.
Right.
And similarly, on the same day, the president says he's going to take in at least 10,000 Syrian Iraqi refugees, even though our intelligence officials are telling us, there's definitely going to be ISIS and Al-Qaeda guys that infiltrate the refugees and are trying to make their way through Europe into the United States.
No, of course. It's not like this is some, wacky conspiracy theory. This is what ISIS says. This is what ISIS says, and now we have Saudi Arabia offering to donate money. They won't actually take any refugees, but they will donate money to Germany to help with the feeding, the housing, the clothing of the refugees. No, Sean, to build 200 mosques. They're seriously doing that. No, Trump is right. We are led by stupid people, and the usual half measure, thought up by Republicans. Well, we can't be completely against refugees. No, be completely against refugees. We don't want them. And their position is...
You know why we don't want them? Because our intelligence tells us that ISIS and Al-Qaeda is going to infiltrate. That means they're coming to the country.
Well, that's part of it, yeah, but we don't need any more millions of third world people dumped on our country. Then there is no country, thus the subtitle of my book. The whole world becomes the same teeming mass of peasants. No, without America, who is going to go in and save countries from dictators, from earthquakes, from tsunamis? Good luck, checking with Mexico. But needless to say, the mealy-mouthed midway position of most Republicans is, we'll only take the Christians. No, we don't want the Christians. Alleged Christians. For one thing, we have to take care of our own people first. That's number one. We've been taking care of the whole world for a long time now, and our country is collapsing. We need a little me time here. But point two, as I described in my column last week, and I hope you read it because I'm breaking some news here. I had a few stories of our beloved refugees in this country who turn out to be jihadists. They're great gratitude for us paying for this one guy, the Uzbek in Boise, Idaho, where there are hundreds of Uzbeks who claimed they were being persecuted because they're Christians. Well, this Uzbek brought his sister, his children, his wife, his ailing parents. Whoa, boy, are you on the hook for that, taxpayer? And what he was doing, instead of getting a job, was planning jihad here against America, plans to bomb military installations in Texas and Utah, and he's communicating back with his jihadist buddies in Uzbekistan, bragging about, I am the one who is closest to the infidels. And this is a guy who got in claiming he was persecuted because he was a Christian. No, look, I'm sorry. The rest of the world is a hellhole. We don't need to turn our country into it. First, we take care of our own. It's like, I just thought of it flying out to a speech in St. Louis this weekend. You know, when you sit down and they're going through the safety instructions with you, they say the gas mask will pop out if you need air. And if you're traveling with a child, put on your gas mask first. Then attend to your child. Okay, that's the position America is in now. We need to save our country so that we can continue to be a force of good in the world.
What do you think of Benjamin Carson's rise? He's now a solid second place. What do you think of him?
And the Republicans do this. It's very sweet. Republican voters are sweet people. I like Ben Carson. I like Herman Cain. He had a plan. I really liked that 999 plan. At one point, I liked Colin Powell. We go through this all the time.
By the way, at one point, you liked Chris Christie, and I'll never, Chris Christie, you were hated for liking him.
Well, by you.
That's correct. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and by the way, Chris Christie would be at the top of the polls now if he had listened to me on immigration, but no, he voted for your buddy Marco Rubio's amnesty plan. That's when I dumped Chris Christie, and then he turned around, doubled down, and pushed in-state tuition for illegals.
I had on the program last week both Kasich and Jeb Bush, and both of them are solidly in the camp of Obama and taking in these refugees. I don't get it.
Of course they are. They're both for open borders.
It's nuts.
They're both completely for open borders.
Why are you just lukewarm on Carson? I think Carson is a very understated guy. Because
he's also for a path legalization, says offense won't work, and as of yesterday, had a somewhat, look, he's a nice man, he's well-spoken, I like him personally, but no, look at everyone keeps attacking Trump saying, well, he's not giving us policy details. He's the only one who's given us policy details. At that speech a month ago up in New Hampshire, he's actually giving us the building requirements for what the wall will be. And I bet you one question that will not be asked at the debate this week, an interesting question that would actually distinguish the candidates as opposed to seeing which one can denounce the Iran deal with more vitriol, is are you for a wall or against it, and why not if not? Because there's only one guy who's going to say, I'm for a wall and tell you how to build it. But yesterday, Carson said, and that's but the reason I mentioned the policy details, what are Carson's policy details? People like him personally the way they personally like.
I've interviewed these guys a lot, and I agree with you. Donald Trump has given more substance than he's ever been given credit for.
We have no substance from the rest of them. Yesterday,
no, I'm getting substance from a lot of them. I'm
trying to work around you. Yesterday, Ben Carson was asked about, or at least it ran in a newspaper yesterday, and I tweeted it out. He was asked about Ferguson and Officer Darrell Wilson shooting Big Mike, and he said his response was, well, I wouldn't have shot him. I think I would have arrested him.
What do you say?
What do you think Officer Wilson was trying to do?
He was trying to arrest him. He can't fight a cop for his gun. Now, what do you say? Because the big criticism that I would argue and I would predict for Wednesday that I think all the candidates are going to gang up on Trump.
Of course.
I think they're angry that he has sustained his numbers in the polls and actually is surging. So my question is, when they attack him for his changed positions, for once being a Democrat, for donating to Hillary, being part of the problem by buying politicians, what do you think the answer should be?
Well, I'm sure he will come up with a fantastic answer.
I'm asking what you think it should be.
What I would say, not speaking as him, but speaking on his behalf here, there is one consistent strain throughout Donald Trump's life. I also tweeted out an article about when he saved a family farm that had been in the family for like 5 generations. It's such a touching story. It'll make you cry. This was back in 1986, and the quote he gave at the time, they flew up for Christmas Day, burned the mortgage in the lobby of Trump Towers and had dinner with his family, and the father of the family farm had committed suicide hoping the insurance money would save the family farm. It was an incredibly sad story, and Trump saved the day. And the quote he gave at the time, this is back in 1986, was, we send millions of dollars to foreign farmers, but we don't help our own American farmers. I saw an interview with him. Also, I tweeted out Donald Trump being interviewed by Larry King, I think, at the 1988 Republican National Convention. He's introduced as a Republican. Talks about one of the things that I thought was interesting was that he said he had just come from a speech Dan Quayle gave. No matter what King would ask him about, he just kept coming back to. And boy, that Dan Quayle was very impressive. Moreover, I just saw a big ad Donald Trump took out. The date is smudgy. I don't know if this is going around the internet. I'm about to tweet it out. From, I think it was May 1990, coming out for, supporting the police on the death penalty and saying no one is going to be safe without secure communities. One thing, he spoke when we were the only 2 speakers at the March 2013 CPAC who spoke against amnesty. Every other speaker at the alleged Conservative Political Action Committee was pro-amnesty. So he has a consistent strain going back 20 years of being for Americans first. And why? Because he didn't make his money outsourcing jobs. He makes his money here in America. He's in real estate. You can't outsource real estate. If America goes under, his entire business goes under. This is in his heart. He feels it. He's the only one right now. I mean, I loved Mitt Romney because he was good on immigration, better than any of the rest of them. But all of the elites back then were hysterical about self-deportation. How do they like a wall and mass deportation? Because that's polling pretty well.
Well, he also said he'd get people out of here and have the wall built in 2 years, I think, this weekend. Let me ask you on the Democratic side. I mean, Hillary apparently didn't wipe her server clean. Everyone's talking about Joe Biden getting into the race. Do you think he's a threat?
He's a threat to Hillary, absolutely. I think what is happening with the Democrats is they realize Hillary is an absolute clunker of a candidate, but they can't face down the feminists. So they need to have a good argument, which is why the New York Times is not exactly, defending Hillary. They're giving oddly honest, uncharacteristically honest reporting on the whole email server issue. The Democrats need to be able to go to the feminists and say, look, we tried, but she's a loser. So we have this nice Vice President, Joe Biden. We're going to run him instead. And don't worry, Debbie Wasserman Schultz will still run the Democratic National Committee or whatever she's running. But the feminists are the noose around the Democrats' necks, the way some fake Tea Partiers are around the Republicans' necks. And this is what they're facing with Hillary. But I think either of them will not do very well against Donald J. Trump.
It's going to be fascinating. I do think that the electoral map is difficult for any Republican. And
thanks to immigration, right?
Who would you pick if you're Trump? If Trump gets the nomination, because you're such a big Trump supporter, who would you want him to pick for VP? And
I'm so glad you asked because I have the most dynamite ticket and an emergency backup.
You got 30 seconds, so go.
Trump Romney. Comes the crazies, establishment type, and he can take care of the Fed and all of the busy work things. He seems to love the country or wouldn't have run. My emergency backup is Dave Bratt, the guy who beat Eric Cantor. Tall, handsome economics professor and fabulous on immigration.
You know, one thing I will say about you, Coulter, you're never dull. You're never boring. I mean, you always have strong opinions. You back it up with a lot of research. I always enjoy talking to you. I really do. I miss having you on the show. And so stop being
why don't you have me on the show then?
Oh, why don't you book yourself the way you always do, which apparently you got ticked off at me over something, which I have no recollection about. And
you are such a liar. Okay, I'm coming on this Thursday. Announce it to everybody.
All right, Thursday's not going to work. I'll tell you why later.
Oh, okay, listeners.
Friday.
See that?
Friday works.